Hey guys, how's it going? This is a video for James Trip Chaos Wave. We are exploring going from theory to practice. How long does it take? How long did it take me? Because this is the question that's kicked this off from Bad Trip. Bad Trip asks, hello James, I'm really fascinated with the whole human influence and psychology thing. I'm just curious, how long did it take you to go from not knowing anything, from theory into practice? How did you do it? How much did you know when you first hypnotized somebody, when you hypnotized somebody for the first time? So now some people already know that once upon a time I was a teacher of martial arts, of Chinese Tai Chi Chuan and Russian Sistema. And simultaneous to learning this stuff, or sort of overlapping with it, I started to learn a lot about NLP, conversational hypnosis, this kind of thing. Looking at NLP, the two areas that really fascinated me were modeling and conversational hypnosis. So I really did a lot of work studying conversational hypnosis. And as I've mentioned elsewhere, I think I mentioned in a video recently, when you're learning this stuff, it's good to have a context. If you try and learn it in abstract, you're never going to apply it practically. So it's good to have a context. At the time, I was teaching martial arts. I was also studying osteopathy, so I was doing manual therapy. And I was also doing close-up magic. So the first three places I started to use what I was learning about influence, pragmatic psychology, conversational hypnosis, were in these three areas. And the first time I remember really explicitly using hypnosis was in a Tai Chi class that I was running. Now, I had been for some time writing out Milton Model patterns, and I'd been thinking, what are the kinds of shifts that I want to help my students get? What are the sort of understanding shifts, mind shifts, shifts in behavior that I want to help them get? And I'd used that as content for writing up all these Milton Model patterns. And I was just kind of riffing. It wasn't creating a script, it was exploring the ideas. And I was going around this in abstract. I was sat at home doing this, and then I'd go back to the class and I'd keep on sort of doing what I'd always done. I wasn't doing anything different. And I recognized this gap, and I knew it was a gap that needed to get bridged at some point. One of the initial things that held me back was a concern that my students who were used to me being one way would suddenly think, well, this is a bit weird. James has gone nuts and has started talking in this strange way. So my fears held me back for a short time, but I also recognized that, you know, I had a genuine passion for this stuff, and I wasn't going to progress unless I overcame those fears and sort of stepped across that bridge. So I made a decision one day that I would take the initial Nigong session. I'll explain what that is in a moment. And instead of doing it the way I would typically do it, I would use hypnotic language patterns, hypnotic languaging. Now, Nigong means internal work. It's a type of standing meditation, at least the system that I used to practice and teach. It's a type of standing meditation that's about really tuning in to subtle body connections. So there's a lot about focusing the mind, making small adjustments, these kinds of things. And I'd always facilitated the group Nigong session at the beginning in a particular way. So I was going to do it very, very differently using this hypnotic languaging. And so I began, I can't remember exactly what I said, just so as you notice yourself here, in this moment, in this room, you can begin to become aware now of the weight of your body connecting into the ground and these sorts of things. So I'm working with a group. I've got the class lined up in front of me. I'm at the front of the class. So I'm using a lot of principles of pacing and leading, linkages, evocative language. And inside of this, I've got the content. I mentioned before in a previous video about the shell and the nut. The nut is the content, the shifts that I want to make. So I took the class through this. It's about probably a 15-minute process. And then when I finished up, just over on my left, the far left, is a guy called Ian, who'd been a student of mine for some time. And Ian came out of this standing meditation, this focusing, this Nigong. He came out, he kind of dropped out of it at the end and went, whoa. He said, that was intense. That was the most intense Negung session I've ever done. So when he said that, of course, I'm thinking, oh, right, so this stuff really makes a difference. This really makes a difference. But then I had that fear. I'd had that fear the whole time in the back of my mind, would people think I was being weird or any of that kind of thing? So I asked him straight. I said, did you notice me doing anything different? And he looked at me and went, no. And at that point, I recognized that the nature of this kind of hypnotic languaging is when it's done well or well enough, the person becomes so absorbed in the experience that is being created and shaped that they're not really paying attention to other things like the words that are being said. So there's no consciousness on the actual communication, only consciousness being wrapped up in the experience. So this is the first time that I'd ever used that. And I'm going to guess, I'd probably been studying it for about a year, maybe less. But the key thing I want to say here is I had a context. I knew that there was something that I wanted to do. I went on to continue to develop my use of hypnotic languaging and influence in martial arts, teaching martial arts. But I also brought it a lot into the manual therapy work that I was doing at the time. So I might be doing a trigger point release. And instead of saying, oh, this is going to be a bit uncomfortable for a bit, but it should ease, which would have been the kind of crappy languaging I may have used before, to going, so you can just notice a sense or a sensation in there. And as you breathe with it, just let me know. It just starts easing gently. So I'd start to use more hypnotic languaging as I was doing trigger point release work or anything like that. I mentioned in other times, in other places, that when I was also doing close-up magic at the time, I was a student of Kenton Knepper's Wonder Words program, which looks at taking the Milton Model and some ideas from NLP and applying them to supporting close-up magic or any kind of magic that you do. So looking at really upping the impact of the magic tricks that you're doing through supporting them psychologically, so to speak. So I was doing a lot of study in there, and there's a lot of application in those areas. Those three areas were the three big areas that I was engaged with before I got anywhere near doing coaching and change work and that kind of thing. But I think if you have an area of application, there's no reason to hang around. And I've mentioned this in other videos, if you don't have an area of application, it's just too easy for it all to stay in the abstract and for you to never get your feet on the ground, never get the kind of rubber meeting the road, so to speak. Okay, so I hope that's been useful for you, a little bit of personal history for me. And if you like the video, as always, give it the thumbs up. If you have any questions or you want to explore this topic further, please do make use of the comments section below. If you're interested in deep knowledge, deep understandings of using your mind to shape your life that you will not get anywhere else, you want to make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notifications bell. So until the conversation continues, keep on using your mind to shape your life.